Hello, and thank you for joining us for this webinar for your upcoming trip, the highlights of England, Scotland, and Ireland. We're going to begin shortly. I'm just going to allow for a few more moments here for some more people to log on, but our presentation will begin shortly. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this informational webinar of your upcoming tour, the highlights of England, Scotland, and Ireland. My name is Nilsson. I work for Go Ahead Tours. I'm based out of our Boston office, and I'm really excited to be here with you today. I love talking about this itinerary, and I hope that you are excited as well. I'm also really excited to introduce you to one of our tour directors. She has been taking our travelers on this very itinerary this season. And so she's got a lot of firsthand knowledge from this season and seasons past. I'm very excited to introduce you to Kat. Kat, can I ask you to introduce yourself to our travelers today?
Hello, folks. How you doing? Hi. I'm very excited to talk to you. I'm very excited to be back on the road. You have no idea how wonderful it is to be back out there. The last 2 years were so depressing. Even my cat wanted me out of the house, I swear. That's how bad it was. Anyway, I'm glad to be back. I've been a tour director for Go Ahead for quite some time, minus the last 2 years. And we're back on the road. And, travel is a bit chaotic at the moment, but we're fighting through it, and we love having you back, and you're going to enjoy that journey. It's a really, really great tour.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thank you again, Kat, for being here with us today. We are going to rely on your expertise for much of this presentation, and so let's jump right into it and talk about what we have on schedule for you today. So what we're going to do is we are going to begin by talking to you about some practical information, some things that are going to help you to prepare for your tour. So I'm going to talk to you about our Safe Traveler Agreement. I'll talk to you about the Go Ahead app and some really helpful tools that we have for you there. We'll also talk a little bit about air travel. You may have heard some things in the news about the state of the airline industry. And so we're going to talk about that, what we've been hearing from our staff, our travelers, and our airline partners. And we're going to share some air travel tips for you. Then I am going to talk to you a little bit about safety on tour, especially our EF COVID Care Promise. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make that transition and get into some really fun stuff. We're going to talk about what you are going to see, what you're going to experience on each day of this tour. And we're also going to highlight some optional excursions that we have for you, things that you can add to enhance your tour experience. So we're going to be talking about the itinerary and the optional excursions that we do have available. Once we talk through the itinerary with Kat, we're then going to talk to you about some other expectations and tips. We'll talk about weather, we'll talk about packing, we'll talk about money, and then we are going to open it up for your questions and our answers. So if you do have questions for us today, please feel free to submit those using the question and answer function on the toolbar in Zoom. So you can type your questions into us. I do have colleagues that are going to be monitoring that inbox, and they may be responding to in writing. But Kat and I, we're also going to try to answer some of your questions during the presentation and, of course, in the Q&A at the end. So with that, I do want to begin by talking to you about our Safe Traveler Agreement. So the Safe Traveler Agreement is a document that we've created that outlines our approach to safe travel. Lets you know what we expect from you and what you can expect from us and your fellow travelers. The Safe Traveler Agreement is going to be available for you to read and agree to beginning at 45 days prior to your departure. You'll find that in your online account and in the Go Ahead mobile app. So we do ask that that you do review that and agree to it before you travel with us. So there's a few things that you should have in mind as you're getting ready to travel. So one thing that you know you're going to need is a passport. You're absolutely going to need a passport for this trip. So make sure that your passport is valid for at least 6 months beyond your scheduled return date. In addition to that, I do want to talk to you about vaccination and COVID-19 testing. So as of now, both the UK and Ireland, they aren't requiring us to present proof of vaccination or test results in order to enter the country. Go Ahead, however, is asking that our travelers be vaccinated, meaning that they've had their initial vaccine series, and that we have negative COVID-19 test results before you depart. So the reason that we ask this is to reduce any likelihood of operational problems or the possibility that anyone may have to end up in quarantine overseas. So what we're asking is that if for your testing, we ask that if you are having your testing done by a third-party provider, that you have that testing done within 72 hours of the departure of your first flight. And if you're doing a home test, we ask that you do that home test within 24 hours of the departure of your first flight, and that you take a photo of that test result to bring with you to tour. So let's talk about where you can find information about the Safe Traveler Agreement and what we are asking of our travelers. Well, you can find this on our website. It's easy to find by searching for travel requirements or entry requirements on the search bar on our website. You can also find it in your online account and in the Go Ahead mobile app. So the Go Ahead mobile app is an incredibly useful tool for you as you are getting prepared to travel with us and for when you're on tour as well. If you want to download it, you can point your phone's camera at the screen right now at that QR code, and it'll prompt you to download the Go Ahead Tours app. So you can also find it in the Apple App Store as well as the Google Play Store. But there are a number of different reasons that I think it's important to have the app. One of them is that you can communicate with your tour director and with your fellow travelers by using the Go Ahead Tours app. So you can message with them. You can also share photos and memories in what we call our tour feed. It works a little bit like a Facebook feed where you can share memories and photos there, but I would say it's a really great tool to be able to communicate with your tour director and with your fellow travelers. Kat was mentioning to me that she's even started messaging some of her travelers before they depart and getting in touch with them there. So I would say get the Go Ahead mobile app. It's really helpful for you to be able to communicate with your tour director and your fellow travelers. In addition to that, you can find a lot of helpful information in the tab that we call the Getting Ready tab. So we have information in there about packing, money, electricity, a lot of the stuff we're actually going to cover today. You can find that information in the Go Ahead mobile app in the Getting Ready tab. We also have some helpful things like a currency converter. That's really a great thing to have when you're going shopping, but strongly recommend downloading the Go Ahead Tours app. Take a look around in there and you will find some really helpful features for you when you're on tour and before tour when you're preparing as well. So I do want to take a moment here to talk to you about traveling now, what it's like to be traveling in 2022. This is a really exciting time to be working in the travel industry. And it's also a time of, a lot of big transitions. This is the first big travel season that we have seen since 2019. And so there's a lot of really exciting elements of that. But we've also seen there can be some difficulties from, especially in the airline industry. And so you may have heard news stories about some difficulties that folks are having with air travel. And I did want to talk about those and then share some tips that we have put together based on recommendations from our staff, our travelers, and our partners in the airline industry. So one thing I do want to talk about is what is causing these issues that you may have heard about more frequent delays, cancellations, and some baggage issues as well. So the first thing is that we have a higher demand than we've seen in years. So we have lots of people wanting to get out and travel, just like you, and you should be excited to get out there. We have been having such a good time traveling the world this season, but there's a lot of people that want to do the same thing at the same time. Now, on top of that, we are seeing some staffing challenges that are affecting the airline industry. So you may have heard about pilot shortages or issues with flight crews, but these staffing issues are also extending to other parts of the airport that you might not think of. So like baggage handlers, as well as TSA and other security agents. So those things on top of the high demand can lead to what we call schedule changes, so delays and cancellations. Now, on top of that, of course, we have our routine disruptions. So things like weather, mechanical issues. So this has sort of been leading to high demand, schedule changes, and then of course there's limited availability of staff and aircraft when people are getting rescheduled. So of course, then we want to talk about how do we navigate this air travel space on our way to and from tour. And we do have some tips that we've put together for you to help you navigate these issues. So one thing that I do think is one thing that I always want to mention when I'm talking about air travel is about seating. We get so many questions about seating. I want to remind you that seating is at the discretion of the airline. So if you do have specific seating requests, you should contact your airline directly to talk to them about that. Now, one thing that I think is also really important for you to do is to download the app for your specific airline that you're traveling with. There's a number of reasons this is important. First is it's a very helpful way for you to manage your reservation. Many airlines will let you choose seats through their app. They'll also let you enter information about dietary preferences. You can enter your known traveler numbers. So I think it's a really good idea to have the app for your airline as part of your preparation for travel. But in the event that you do have a canceled flight, many of these airlines are now letting you rebook yourself through their app. So it's kind of a self-service thing. This is preferable to waiting in line at a desk in the airport or waiting on hold to get through to an airline representative. Trust me, it's a lot easier to make these selections through the app and then be able to do it quickly as well. So that's one thing that I would say is a really important thing is download the app for the airline that you're traveling with. Also, please complete any documents that you need to complete, anything that you have before you leave for the airport. You just want to eliminate any extra things that you need to do before you arrive. And also, we advise arriving extra early. In the past, we used to advise arriving about 2 hours early for an international flight. Depending on your airport and how busy it is, I would recommend arriving between 3 and 4 hours early. I know that sounds like a lot, but it's better to be there sitting at the gate with a lot of time than the alternative, being in line and stressing that you might not make it in time. So give yourself plenty of time and go with the flow. Take it as it comes, slow and easy. And then another thing that I do want to mention is that this summer, we have seen more cases in which people's baggage has been delayed or lost. And that is because of these schedule changes. So when you have a flight cancellation, it can really gum up the works of the system by which they move the bags around, right? So one thing that I would say is, if at all possible, if it was me, I would try to pack just in my carry-on, so you don't have to think about that at all. But if you do decide to check a bag, what I would say is, when you're packing your carry-on, make sure that your essentials are in that carry-on that you keep with you. So that means things like your medication in their original bottles, toiletries like a toothbrush, and spare outfits. So a couple days worth of clothes in the event that you do have to wait for your luggage. So that is one piece of advice that I have there. One other one that one of my tour directors shared with me yesterday that I think is great to pass on is, if you're traveling with your spouse or another travel companion, one thing that you can do is you can split up your packing so that you have half of your luggage in one of your bags and half of it in the other. So if one of the bags is lost, you still have half of your clothes and things to get through the tour with. So let's talk a little bit about what happens if your flight is delayed or canceled. We certainly hope this doesn't happen to you. And as time goes on, we hope that this will become less frequent, but it is something that we have seen more than normal of this summer. So let's talk about what happens if your flight is delayed. So first thing I would recommend is contact your tour director. We are going to be sending your tour director's phone number to you by email before you depart. If you are on the app, you may be able to get in touch with them and get information from them. Oftentimes, they're on an app called WhatsApp that works on Wi-Fi, so you don't even need self-service for that. So, but I would say contact your tour director. You'll have their phone number sent to you by email. That way, they know that you're not going to be arriving at the expected time. The other thing I would mention is you can call our on-tour support team in addition to that, so that they're informed as well. But I would say your tour director, they're going to be the one that is kind of keeping track of flights and looking for when people are going to be arriving. So get in touch with them and let them know that you're not going to be there at the expected time. Now, if your airline does cancel your flight, it is their responsibility to reschedule you. We call this re-protecting you. So it is their responsibility to re-protect you and get you onto another flight and onto your final destination. So please do work directly with your airline, whether that's using their app, talking to an agent at the desk, or calling them on the phone. That will be the fastest way for you to get rescheduled and on to your final destination. When you are talking to any representatives, do use that word, reprotect. It is an industry word that we use that means rebooking, but it shows them that you know what your rights are and what their responsibility is to you. It is to reprotect you and get you onto another flight as soon as possible. Now, one thing that we have seen when people are getting rescheduled is that the options that they have available are limited because there's limited aircraft and limited staff. So, if you are rebooked after a canceled flight, oftentimes the itinerary is not going to seem quite as appealing as the one that you had initially. The other thing that I want to mention is that it's typical that your seating assignments would not be the same when you get rebooked after having a canceled flight. But I would take the best option that you have of the ones that they give you initially, because these seats fill up fast. If they're rebooking an entire aircraft, those seats do fill up fast. So you want to take what you can get and get yourself to tour. We do recommend having travel insurance. The package of travel insurance that we offer, it does have coverage for things like lost baggage. So if your baggage is lost, you could get reimbursed for buying new clothes and things like that. In addition, if you do have significant delays on your way to tour, it can help offset costs of things like hotel rooms or meals, things like that. So if you are looking for travel insurance, which I recommend that you do, please do look for one that will cover you for these things that can happen while you're in transit as well. The last thing I want to talk about as far as airlines is just pack your patience. This is a necessary part of travel, of course, is air travel. And sometimes it's not always the most pleasant, but we can bring our best attitude to this and just get through this process and get ourselves to tour. This is a small part of your overall tour experience. So once you get yourself to tour, we're going to show you an incredible time. Trust me. But and you're getting to and from tour. Bring your patience, bring your kindness. Our partners in the airline industry, they've been having a little bit of a rough go of it. So a little bit of kindness can go a long way. All right, so I do want to talk to you about how to meet up with the group once you arrive. So once you arrive in London, we do have some steps that you should plan to follow. Now, the good news for you is if you purchase your flight package with us, we are planning to have a driver meet you at the airport to get you to the hotel. If you have arranged your own flights, we can also set this up for you, but you do need to give us a call to have that arranged. Now, we do this on our standard arrival days for the tour and for the pre-extension. If you're arriving on your own flights outside of those dates, you would be responsible for your own transportation. But let's talk about what we have included for our folks if they are arriving and they have go-ahead flights or they've arranged transfers with us. So first of all, welcome to London. What you're going to do is first you're going to go through the arrivals process. So usually Heathrow is a very busy airport. You're going to end up in a long line to show your passport and get approved to enter. So again, another area where you're going to be patient. But then once you collect your baggage, our driver cannot meet you in the baggage area. So it's very important that you leave the baggage area and enter the arrivals hall. The baggage area is closed, so people that aren't flying cannot enter there. So you do need to proceed beyond the baggage claim area and into the arrivals hall. Now, if you've ever been on a go-ahead tour before, this arrival process is going to be a little bit different than what you've experienced in the past. If you're arriving on a standard go-ahead tour, normally what you would look for is someone with a green go-ahead sign. In London, though, for a number of reasons, we use a company called Addison Lee, and their drivers will be the ones to meet you. So what you should be looking for is a sign with your name on it. Now, I've been hearing from some of my colleagues that these signs can vary in their presentation. So sometimes it's a paper sign, sometimes it's on an iPad. I've even had people with their name on a cell phone. So be looking for some form of sign with your name on it. Don't look for go ahead, look for your own name. And so the driver should be there with a sign with your name on it. And from there, they will transfer you to the hotel. Now, Kat or one of her colleagues, they will be waiting at the hotel in London. They'll be in the lobby there, so that is where you'll meet your tour director. But the person picking you up at the airport will be a driver from a company called Addison Lee, and you should look for a sign with your name on it. Now, if you are significantly delayed, it is possible that we may advise you to secure your own transportation to the hotel. In that case, if that does happen, please get in touch with us and we can talk to you about reimbursement. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about the on-tour experience. And I do want to talk a little bit about what you can expect regarding COVID-19 and some of our policies there. So first things first, I just want to remind you that one of the advantages of traveling with Go Ahead is that you have an expert tour director who's with you the entire tour. So if you have any questions, great or small, whether it's about COVID or anything else, you can ask them and they will be there to assist you. Give them the opportunity to provide you with excellent service. Now, I also want to say that this is a time, as I mentioned, of transition. So we appreciate your flexibility. You might have experienced at home, like if you're going out to a restaurant or even staying at a hotel, that sometimes, things are a little bit slower. They might have capacity issues. So again, pack your patience, be flexible, and go with the flow because we are all getting back out there and exploring the world together. Now, we ask that you follow all local regulations when you are on tour with us. As of now, things in the UK and Ireland are very, very relaxed as far as COVID goes. You don't have to show proof of vaccination or testing to enter the country. Masking is very much optional throughout the country. And so that is, but if things were to change or if you had any questions, your tour director can chat with you about that when you're there. I still think it's a good idea to bring masks with you just in case. We do have enhanced protocols around COVID that you'll see, especially in places like hotel common areas. So we do hope that you see some of that. And I do want to talk to you about our EF COVID Care Promise. So this is a policy that we put in place as we began to travel again to address the question, what happens if I'm required to quarantine on tour? So if you are on tour with us and you do test positive for COVID and you're required to quarantine, we will be there for you and we will help you in a number of ways. We will arrange and pay for your lodging and your meals. We will make sure that we're communicating with local authorities and medical professionals as necessary. And if you purchase your flight package with us, we'll also get you home on a new flight itinerary once your quarantine has ended. So I certainly hope that no one has to take advantage of this policy, but it's important to know that it's there and that we will have your back if you are required to quarantine on tour. All right, so with that, I do want to take a moment here and transition. And so what we are going to do is we are going to begin talking about the itinerary itself. Kat, are you ready to hop in here and talk about this tour?
Sure, let's do it.
Wonderful. So let's begin by talking about the pre-extension. So the pre-extension, for some of you, will be additional days that you book when you arrive early in London. But let's talk first about the pre-extension, Kat.
Okay, well, hello, folks. Nice to hear from you, see you again. Hopefully we'll all see you on my tour. I have a few of these tours coming up. So first things first, you will arrive in London. As Nielsen said, you might be quite tired, you might be jet lagged, so we're trying to make that nice and easy for you. You come to the hotel, meet one of us at the hotel, and then we'll have nice dinner and send you to sleep pretty much. That'll be your first day because you'll be exhausted. But then the next day, it's all go, go, go. So we will firstly meet our tour guide in the morning the next day. We will do a general sightseeing. Oh, sorry, we're talking pre-extension, Nielsen. No, I know, sorry, that was my mistake. I forgot the pre-extension. I'm already on the main tour. Sorry, guys. On the pre-extension, you won't meet the tour guide yet. You will be with me or one of my colleagues. Apologies. And we will take you to Stonehenge, firstly, which I'm sure you all heard about it. Just a couple of stones somewhere in the grass somewhere. Really great place to go. And then after we take you to Salisbury, absolutely beautiful market town. And we will take you to Salisbury Cathedral. And there is part of the Magna Carta there. And your tour director will explain to you what that is.
Great.
Right. Then the day after, what will happen is obviously your tour director will try and get the rest of your group together, and you have a free day in London. But don't worry, we have so many possibilities in London. So you just ask us, and we will tell you where you can go. You can go to the Tower, you can go to the British Museum, you can just hang out and sip coffees in one of the beautiful bars. So there's plenty to do. And then that day, then we will have dinner together. Once the whole group arrives, we will have a welcome dinner all together.
Great. And then the next day, that's when we have the guided sightseeing tour of London.
Now we're good. Sorry. Back on track. So then the next day, the next morning, one of our experienced London tour guides is going to come pick us up from the hotel. And then we will do the full sightseeing tour of London. Now, just please bear in mind, London is an extremely busy city. So we'll try and show you as much as possible, but traffic happens. So normally we try and end up at Buckingham Palace. In summer, the changing of the guard should happen depending on weather. And then afterwards, you either have a free afternoon or we'll take you to Windsor Castle. Now, the important thing here to note is if Windsor Castle falls on a Wednesday, then unfortunately it's closed. So that's not down to us. You can take it up with the Queen if you want. But yeah, it's closed. So we would take you to Hampton Court. But I'm sure you all have heard about Henry VIII, you know, the ones with the 6 wives. So that's quite exciting as well. So instead of taking you to Windsor, we would take you to Hampton Court. Right, and then the next day it's already off. We are leaving London and we are going to one of my favorite cities in the whole world. And you will soon see why this picture is amazing, but trust me, it doesn't do it any justice. It's just so beautiful. We'll take you on a magical train ride. It's not the Harry Potter train, but we will leave from King's Cross and you will see the platform 9 3/4 there if you wish, for all the Potter fans. And then we take the train, which is about 4.5 hours, very beautiful ride, and we'll end up in Edinburgh. And yeah, your tour director will show you some of the sites as well. You love it. And then the next day, again, we will have one of our experienced tour guides taking you on a sightseeing tour of Edinburgh. And that will finish with Edinburgh Castle, which is on top of an extinct volcano, really, really amazing. And then you either have a free afternoon or we will take you out to Abbotsford House and Melrose Abbey. Now, Abbotsford House was originally Sir Walter Scott's place. I don't know if you ever heard about the writer, but if you didn't, don't worry about it. The house is magnificent and the gardens are really, really special. A lot of weddings happen there because the gardens are very beautiful. And then we will take you to Melrose Abbey. And Melrose Abbey, you might have all heard about Robert the Bruce, you know, the ones that freed Scotland from the evil English, you know. So Robert the Bruce's heart is buried in Melrose Abbey. And your tour director will tell you why only his heart is there and not the rest of his body. And then the next day we will head down to Liverpool. Now, Liverpool is famous for what? Of course, the Beatles. And I'm sure you all love them. We all grew up with them. So we will drive down to Liverpool. It is a little drive, so please be patient, but we will, of course, make some stops for you. And then you have the option to go on a Liverpool tour. And the way we do this normally is so you can either go, it depends, you know, on the time schedule. So sometimes we go into the museum first, and the Beatles Story Museum is really a really fun museum. And then after you have a tour with one of our experienced tour guides and they take you around all the places, you know, Penny Lane and all that stuff. And they play some Beatles music, really exciting. And of course, then also you can spend the evening in Liverpool. And it's a really fun city and very friendly. Yeah, and then the next day we are going on a ship. So we are going to take a little journey through Wales. Wales is part of the UK. And we're going to stop in a place that's called Llanfair Piddly Widdly. I can't say it because nobody can. It's the second longest place name in the world. So we'll have a little stop there. and then we're jumping on the ferry. Don't worry, it's not a little boat, but for those of you, who tend to get seasick, just, maybe have some medication with you. But it's quite a smooth ride, and it's a massive ship. They have restaurants on there, bars on there. It's real good fun. If the weather is nice, you can even go out on deck. So you love it. And the journey is about 4 hours or so. And then we'll end up in Dublin. Now, just a little heads up. Once we leave the UK, we also change currencies. So we will go from British pounds to euros. And just a little thing in between, I would strongly suggest that you don't take too much cash with you, and also don't necessarily use the currency exchange places, because they kind of rip you off. So I would really suggest that you pay by card in most places and just take cash out of the ATM whenever you need. Also, it's better to not have that much cash on you, because pickpockets are around. They all know it's the season, so just be mindful of that. And yeah, as said, once we are in the island, we will change to euros. And then when we go there, we will have something very traditional there, and it's normally an Irish show and a dinner. And you all know how the Irish dancing goes, the ones with the hands by the side and the feet up in the air like crazy. So, and then there are traditional Irish songs and a 3-course dinner, and it's real good fun. You'll love that. And then we will make our way, southwest. We are going to County Kerry. We'll have a quick stop at the Rock of Cashel, and you will see, as you can see in the picture, one of the round towers. They're dotted all over Ireland. Your tour director will explain what the meaning of them is. And then we will stop at Blarney Castle. Now, Blarney Castle is famous for kissing a stone. Now, don't worry, they do disinfect the stone, because nowadays
you can still kiss it.
Yes, you can still kiss it, but be mindful, you have to kiss it kind of upside down. They don't lower you down on your legs anymore, but there are 2 strong men up there who will help you. Just be mindful. The queues to kiss that stone are quite long, sometimes, especially in summer. So I think Blarney Castle is much more magnificent if you go and look at the amazing gardens there and have a walk around the walkways. If you're interested in long walks, oh my God, that is just the best place to do it. And then we are going to the famous Ring of Kerry. Now, every tour director does that differently. That depends in which hotel we are staying. Sometimes we're staying in a place called Killarney. Sometimes we're staying in a place called Sneem, sometimes in Tralee. But luckily for you, you have an expert tour director with you, and they will start the ring exactly in the way that suits you best. And there's loads of beautiful viewing points on there. We often also take you onto the horse carts if you fancy. So yeah, there's loads of fun to be had.
Great, wonderful. And how about this day? Wow, look at that.
Exactly, that's one of the viewpoints. So you love that. And speaking of viewpoints, of course, the next day we're going to the Cliffs of Moher, which is absolutely magnificent. I mean, you're gonna be so excited. Just don't jump off the cliffs in your excitement, because people really love taking selfies, and they just step back and step back. So just be careful with that, okay? But it's absolutely gorgeous. If we get a nice sunny day, then oh my God, you will love it. It's magnificent.
Great. And then, Kat, correct me if I'm wrong, but that day we also travel back to Dublin for the flight home the following day. Is that right?
So what we need to do that day, thank you, Nielsen. So because we can no longer travel from Shannon Airport at the moment, because things have happened, not all the airlines are operating from there yet. So it's really not our fault in that sense, because Shannon Airport was closed for a long time. So we have to go back to Dublin, and then we'll enjoy our farewell dinner in Dublin. And then you're overnight there, and then you fly back from Dublin.
Great. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking us through that, Kat. I love hearing about this tour. It's really a wonderful combination of, 3 wonderful destinations. I've been, as you were talking, I was watching some questions come in, and I was hoping that I might be able to ask a few of them of you now. So Kat, I have a question from Richard, and he is arriving on the pre-extension, so he will have a free day, but he says, I'd like to take the Channel to Paris. Is this recommended for a one-day trip there? As I've heard recently, there've been strikes on public transportation. Might that one be a little bit dicey?
Richard, there are two things I will say. I think Nielsen is right. It will be dicey because I'm worried that you're gonna get back. So that's the one thing. The other thing, there's so much to do in London that, you know, it'd be a shame if you miss out on that. And Paris actually is yeah, a bit iffy at the moment with pickpockets from what I hear from, especially the trains, from what I hear from my colleagues. So I mean, if you had more than one day, sure, but I think just for one day, it is a little dicey.
Be a lot, yeah. So here's a question about dress code. So Mark says that on the brochure he saw something mentioning that legs should be covered in churches. Is this actually necessary?
Look, I mean, it's a matter of decency. I mean, first of all, yes, we have a heat wave at the moment. I get that, but I mean, nobody has ever said anything about covering up. So we normally wear, you know, short sleeve shirts if we are, as you know, it's a sensible thing. You know, if you maybe not have your shoulders covered, you know, you can put a shawl around it or something. But nobody has ever complained about anything, unless you walk into church half naked. I think everybody's pretty much fine with it. So I wouldn't be too worried about that.
Great. So let's see. I want to take a few more questions. I see some more are coming in, and I do see that there's a number of them that are about money. And so we are going to be talking about currency in just a minute. And I also saw that there were some other ones about you know, some other things about like getting flight information and things of that nature. So I do want to talk first about this question that we received here. So this question is from Mark, and he said, how many destinations have steps or rugged terrain? There's a couple that I could think of. I know that, you know, for example, walking up to Edinburgh Castle, that there's a hill there that you would have to walk up. Of course, if you were trying to walk to the top of Blarney Castle, that there's a lot of steps there. Kat, can you think of any other spots on this tour that might have significant amounts of steps?
Okay, so yeah, with Edinburgh Castle, we're gonna take it slow. It's not necessarily steps, but it is quite steep. Blarney Castle, you have to be fit. It's very tight, and there's steps for sure if you do that. Cliffs of Moher, definitely also pretty rough terrain, you know. But then also you can go up to the cliffs and that's all good. But if you try to walk further up in either direction, then the terrain is a bit rough. So it all depends. I mean, we try to adjust it, of course, to people. So we try to help as much as we can, and we certainly take it slow. But it is important to know that you folks all need to be able, you know, to walk a certain distance. And also, maybe what I always suggest is that I know a lot of people maybe are not used to walking that much, but I would pre-tour already start, you know, taking little walks every day just to get into the swing of things, you know. But yeah, we certainly will, you know, we'll take it nice and easy.
Great. All right. So I do see that we're continuing to get more questions in. So I'm going to leave some of those for now because we are actually going to be addressing some of them with this upcoming section. So I saw one question that was asking specifically about weather and how much rain we might expect. So Kat, the folks that are on this call, they're going to be traveling in September and October. I know that in the UK and Ireland, the weather is famously changeable. Can you talk a little bit about advice that you have about the weather in the UK and Ireland in the early autumn?
Okay, so that is very difficult. I get questions all about how's the weather going to be, and all I can tell you is it's 4 seasons in one day. Okay, and then they come, and then it's a heat wave, and they're like, "Kat, you were lying to me." I'm like, "What can I tell you?" But we don't know. It might be suddenly super warm in October, and then the next day it might be freezing. And what you really should do is prepare yourself with rain jackets, prepare layers. It's all about layers. And I'm sure Nielsen will tell you that as well. So, you know, wear maybe a t-shirt, you know, then maybe a hoodie, and then your rain jacket. So when you get, hot, you just take it off, and when you get cold, you put it on. It's all about layers. But the important parts are you have good shoes and you have a rain jacket, and that's the two most important things you should have with you.
Kat, you set me up perfectly there. Thank you for that. I was actually just about to talk about packing. And so let's talk about packing tips. So again, I do want to emphasize packing lightly. I did see some questions about luggage and luggage allowances. So what I would say is, first of all, my recommendation is to avoid any headaches. If you can, pack in just a carry-on. I know it sounds difficult, but it can be done. I've done it for trips that are this long and longer. But if you are going to be bringing a checked bag, we ask that travelers limit themselves to one checked bag and one carry-on bag per person. One thing that I do think is worth mentioning is that, on that train from London to Edinburgh, you do have to handle your own luggage there. So just, think about, how much do you actually want to be carrying yourself? And so pack lightly. Again, my other tip around carry-on and bags and what you should pack in there is pack your essentials in your carry-on. Medication, anything you need on a day-to-day basis, put it in your carry-on bag. And again, that tip that I said, if you want to split up your packing between two bags, like between your spouse and yourself or your travel companion, that can make it so that if one of your bags does get delayed, you still have some of your stuff with you. In addition to that, I do recommend continuing to bring masks and hand sanitizer just to have with you just in case. Walking shoes are very important. On this tour, we do have a lot included. We want to show you a lot that's out there, but you're also going to want to continue to explore on your own. So you're going to be putting in some steps. You're going to want to have good, comfortable walking shoes. Now, Kat mentioned this, and I think this bears repeating, but clothing that you can layer is your best friend when you're dealing with changing weather conditions. And in the UK and Ireland, the weather is famous for changing quickly. So I would say, the way that I would dress for this tour is I'd start with a base layer, like a t-shirt or undershirt, and then maybe a button-down shirt like this, and then a sweater, and then a raincoat. So you don't have to wear all those at once, but if it got really cold, you would have all of those layers. And then if it was warm, you could just peel those off until you get to a comfortable temperature. So always think about clothing that you can layer and pieces that you can mix and match with one another so that, if you do get a cooler day, you can throw all those layers on and be nice and comfortable. I do think that a raincoat is a really good thing to have. So definitely something to cut the wind. I would say have it be waterproof if at all possible, because you can get rain, especially as we get later on into the autumn. It is more likely that you would have wet weather. So a good raincoat can be a really helpful thing. I would say I would recommend a raincoat over an umbrella because the umbrellas almost always end up popping out inside out. And frankly, a raincoat usually can pack up very small, so it doesn't take up a ton of space, and it can also just keep you warm. So that's really helpful. I also recommend a reusable water bottle. The water in these locations is perfectly safe to drink out of the tap, so you can just fill up your water bottle at the tap. If you want to buy bottled water, it will be available, but my recommendation is to save yourself some money and save some plastic by bringing a reusable one. And I also want to talk to you about electrical adapters. So let's talk a little bit about that. So in the UK and Ireland, they use this Type G plug, which has these 3 flat pins. So if you're coming from North America, you are going to need an adapter to be able to plug in your devices. So another thing that's worthwhile to mention is that they have different voltage of electricity in the UK and Ireland. So while an adapter of the type that you see on the screen here will change the shape of your plug, it won't necessarily change the voltage entering your device. So please check your devices before you bring them to see if they will work on 220 volt electricity. So things like cell phones, laptops, a lot of electronics, they're designed to work both in North America and in Europe. So those shouldn't be a problem, but you should still check. The things that I would say that you should make sure that you are checking for, some travelers have CPAP machines. If you're bringing a CPAP machine, it's likely that you would need to have what is called a voltage converter. So this is a separate device that would convert the voltage entering your machine so that it doesn't fry it out. The things that we see as the most common repeat offenders for getting fried out using the wrong voltage or even taking out the lights in the hotel are hair care devices, so hot tools like a blow dryer or flattening iron. So the hotels, generally speaking, will have hair dryers you can use. So I would say save yourself some space in your luggage and just use the hair dryers that are there on tour. Another alternative that I've heard of people doing is just buying a cheap one when they get there that they know will work on the plug, because I've heard of people having issues with the voltage converters and the hair dryers even if they have one. So that's my advice there. So let's talk a little bit about money on tours. So you are going to be using two different types of currency on this tour. When you are in the UK, so when you're in England and Scotland, you're going to be using the pound. So you will be using the pound. And then when you're in the Republic of Ireland, you will be using the euro. And actually, I should have updated the exchange rate here, because the euro exchange rate is actually much better. Same thing with the pound too. So the dollar is really strong right now. So this is a good time to be traveling. Again, in England and Scotland, you will be using the pound. In the Republic of Ireland, you will be using the euro. My recommendation is to bring ATM cards, so debit cards and credit cards. So as far as credit cards go, Visa and MasterCard are the most widely accepted cards. They're accepted pretty much everywhere that you're going to be spending money, but you also do want to have cash on hand. So my recommendation is to bring a debit card with you and make sure you notify your bank, of course, but then you can just withdraw money from an ATM. We get lots of questions about bringing cash from home and exchanging it once you arrive, and I don't recommend doing that. Kat was mentioning this, and you really get kind of a raw deal at those cash exchange bureaus, and they're a lot harder to find now than they used to be, in part because you can just withdraw money from ATMs so easily. So again, my recommendation is withdraw cash from ATMs and use credit cards for other purchases, and you should be all set, as long as you make sure you notify your bank that you are traveling. Kat, do you have anything else that you think is important to mention about money or handling money on tour?
Yeah, I always get asked, because you wrote there tipping, which is in regards to us, which is very nice. Thank you very much. But also, I always get asked about tipping in general in terms of in restaurants and so on. So just wanted to quickly tell you that it's slightly different than to the States, because I know that you guys always tip because a lot of your servers don't get a decent wage. So it's slightly different in Europe. So here is the tip. When you get your bill and it says service charge included, then you don't need to tip, because that's the tip that goes to all the restaurant stuff. And when it says service charge not included, that means that you can leave a tip, and it's generally 15 to 20% of the bill, just so you have an idea.
Great. That's really helpful. I do want to talk about tipping for your tour director, bus drivers, and local guides. And then I did see we had some money specific questions here that I'm going to get to after that. But I do want to remind you that when you're on tour with us, we do recommend, or you have folks that are going to be helping you out quite a bit. So your tour director, your bus drivers, and your local guides. And we do recommend that you tip them. So your tour director, we recommend tipping the equivalent of $7 to $10 US per person per day. For bus drivers, we recommend the equivalent of $3 US per person per day. And for local guides, we recommend the equivalent of $2 US per person per day. I did see some questions about whether or not it's acceptable to tip local guides in US currency. I would say it is preferable to tip in the local currency. What'd you say?
We'll take it if we need to. It's not.
Of course. Oh, yeah. Any tip is appreciated, but I would say it's preferable. Yes. If you can do it in the local currency, it is preferable. So let's see. I did see some questions here that I want to take on that are specifically about money. So Glenn was asking, how much cash in pounds should I bring? So I would say that's kind of a matter of your comfort level, how much you want to be traveling with. But I would say you don't need to take out too much, because my recommendation would be, once you get into the country, take out cash from ATMs as needed. So I don't know, maybe $100 or $200, just have a little bit with you on the day you're traveling. But then once you arrive, your tour director, folks at the hotel, they'll be able to point you in the direction of ATMs. Yes, Kat.
Say something to that. Sorry, a lot of what happens, because we have just received new banknotes in the UK. And a lot of the time what happens now is that you guys get banknotes in the US that are still old banknotes. And then because our banknotes are now more plasticky than papery, you will notice that when you come. So, and some places don't accept the old banknotes anymore. So I really would, say, don't bring that much and take it from the ATMs when you're over. And that saves you, the hassle of not being able to use your money because it's old money. I mean, you can do it at the bank, but then it's, a bit of a pain.
Yeah. Oh, so Kat, I had another question that has to do with money, and this actually also has to do with public bathrooms. So this question says, I was told that public toilets cost a coin. Is this true?
Okay, so that depends. It's quite funny. So there are some public bathrooms that cost something and some that don't. All right. So generally speaking, it's normally about 50p. That's like, half a pound.
Mhm.
And that's like a coin. And in Ireland, actually not that much, but it's rare. I mean, we try to take you to public bathrooms that don't cost, but if they do, yeah, it's sometimes 50p or so. It's not that much, but it does sometimes happen.
Yeah. So there's one more question that I saw come in here, and I'm going to do my best to answer it. So the question was, do ATMs accept all U.S. banks? So my recommendation would be to speak to your bank specifically before you leave, just to ask them, what kind of situation you'd be running into over there. One thing that I have found that was really helpful was in talking to my bank, they actually had preferred partners over there, and they said, if you're going to be going and withdrawing cash from an ATM, if you go to this one, you'll have lower fees. So another reason it's important to talk to your bank before you travel is they can let you know what kind of fees you might be looking at, and where you can withdraw cash from. The last one I want to take here, I saw another one come in. It says, tipping, can you do it at the end of the tour, or should we do it daily? So for your tour director, you can do that at the end of the tour. For local guides, you typically only see them for one day, so you would of course tip them on that day. And then for the bus driver, you will have different bus drivers for the different locations you're in, but your tour director will be sure to mention to you when the last time you're going to see them is. So for the bus drivers, that'll be every few days. But for tour directors, at the end of the tour is acceptable. For local guides, you would want to do it on the day that you have them with you. So I do want to mention a few things here before we get into our question and answer section. I do want to remind you to download the Go Ahead Tours app. It is available in both the Apple App Store as well as the Google Play Store. Again, it's a great way to be in touch with your fellow travelers as well as your tour director. And you can also look up helpful information to help you get ready for your trip. Now, when you are on tour with us, we really care about your experience. We want to know how it is. Take it from me. We really want to know all the information that you could provide to us in an evaluation. So you can fill out your evaluation throughout the course of your tour in the Go Ahead Tours app, and it's available for up to 5 days after the tour has ended. But trust me, these things are so important to us. They can really impact how we make adjustments to our tour, ways in which we might alter itineraries and things like that. So this is very valuable information for us. And also, I want to let you know that if your tour director has provided you with excellent service, they want to know about it, and they want to know, they want to have that feedback as well. So if you have a great time on tour, if you have a great tour director, please let us know about it. I also want to let you know about our loyalty program, which we call Club Go. So the more you travel with us, the more rewards you earn. And I also want to let you know that when you come home from this tour, you'll have access to an additional discount. We call it a welcome home credit. It's available for 90 days after you get home. And so if you get home and you're feeling like you have that itch to get another trip on the books, I know I'm that way. If I don't have a trip to look forward to, I start going a little bit batty. So if you feel that way once you get home, please give us a call. It would be our pleasure to help you set up another trip in the future. All right, so I do want to get into our questions here. So let me take a look here, and I will see what we can find. Kat, I have one question here. Okay, great. So I have a question from Florence. Florence asks, will we have an opportunity to have our clothes laundered if need be?
Okay, so with the clothes, it always depends on the length of the tour, but basically most hotels will have a service. So when you get into the rooms, there's normally a sheet and a paper, you can put them in and the hotels will give them to you the next day. Just make sure you do it on the day that you arrive, because we're moving around a lot. If that's not the case, what I often do is at some point during the tour, I get some external laundry in. But again, speak to your tour director. But there is possibility, of course, because we ask you to pack lightly, so you probably would want to launder as well. So it's not a problem. Just ask your tour director.
Great. Oh, this is actually a really good question, and I hadn't thought about this, Kat. On the William asks, is there any tipping on the ferry? Do you need to tip the staff on the ferry from Wales to Dublin?
No, look, generally speaking, if you are on the ferry and you go to a restaurant, which will probably happen, then again, the same thing applies. You can tip the waiters if you like. If it says service charge included, you don't have to. If it says excluded, you can. But that's really the only staff you will see are the people who are serving you. You won't see, much else around. You won't see the captain or something like that. So you don't have to worry too much about that. No.
Great. So this is a question from Wendy, and this is a good one. She says, if our flight is delayed, we can join the tour at any time. This part was confusing to me. So here's what I would say about that is hopefully if you have a flight delay, it won't be all that long. And so really, that first day, the only things that we have planned on that first day that you arrive is a meeting, a drink, and dinner, and that's like late in the evening. So then the next morning, that is when we really start doing sightseeing. But if you are delayed, yeah, we want you to get to tour as soon as possible so that you can have as many of the experiences that we can provide. Once you do get there, and so if you are delayed, we want to help you to get to tour as soon as possible. All right, so let's see. Oh, okay. So this is a question from William. He's asking about the Stonehenge tour. He says, Stonehenge tour, do you provide access inside the ropes? I've seen tours online that offer this option. Is that something that is included? I didn't know that you could go inside the ropes.
No, actually, no, I'm afraid not. So what happens when we get to Stonehenge? There is a shuttle bus that can take you out to the stones, but I'm afraid you're not allowed to go beyond the ropes. So I'm guessing what you were saying is there must be dedicated tours that take the people into the ropes and maybe then watch them to make sure they don't damage anything. But generally, yeah, that's basically why they rope them. Yeah, because of some people being silly, I don't know, wanting to graffiti their names onto them or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm afraid no, you won't really be able to touch them as such.
Right. All right. So I believe that we have answered the questions that let's see. So Charlene is asking, do you have time to go to Stonehenge on your own? I think that would be a little bit tricky, right?
Well, that depends. I mean, it depends if you have a free day. If you run the extension and you have the free day, then you could technically book a tour and go to Stonehenge. But then, you might as well come with us, right? So
yeah.
So I mean, if you have free time, other than that, it would be quite tricky, to be fair, because the rest of the tour is quite busy.
Yes, yeah. All right. Oh, this is a good question from Florence. So Florence says, out of curiosity, I have medication that needs refrigeration. Are there typically refrigerators in the room?
That is a very good question, and I must say that that's not typical. Some hotels have them and some hotels don't. But of course, we can always speak to reception and tell them that they, refrigerate it somewhere. I mean, if it needs to be refrigerated, then we will find a way for it to be put in the fridge somewhere.
Great. So here is a question that is from Philip, and this one's a fun one. Philip asks, he says, we're arriving 2 days early in London. So they're getting there before the tour arrives. And he says, my wife is royalty crazy. Are there any recommendations for stuff to see while we're waiting for the rest of the tour?
Well, if she's royalty crazy, I mean, there's stuff. Certainly, I would go into Westminster Abbey.
Mm-hmm.
I would go into St. Paul's. Those are the two places I would certainly hop into. Princess Diana and Prince Charles got married in one, and then obviously Westminster, there is the other where all the royals are, and the throne is. So those are the two things I would definitely see. If you're going to, I mean, also, make sure you get out to Windsor. And then Buckingham Palace is a thing we will normally do during the sightseeing tour anyway.
Mm-hmm. Great. So here is a question from From Dennis. Dennis asks, can my husband wear shorts the entire time? There's no reason why people couldn't wear shorts throughout the tour,
No,
right?
we have people wearing shorts all the time. And it's funny because you folks are all coming from different climate zones. And sometimes people wear shorts in winter and I'm like, aren't you cold? And they're like, no, this is great. And then vice versa, you know? So of course, whatever, we have no issue with that at all.
Great, great. So Erin asks, she asks, if we take a cab, do you tip the driver?
Generally I do. I mean, it depends, but the drivers are normally quite nice. So what I would do is I would round it up. Let's say, for example, the fare is $5.50, and then I would say 6 or 7, depending on how long the fare was. So we generally round it up. Do you see what I mean by like half or £1 or something like that?
Great. Okay, so this is a good question. So Richard says, we will be in London on Wednesday. How is our excursion modified? So if the Windsor Castle excursion is scheduled for Wednesday, on those days, Windsor Castle is closed to the public, and so on that day we would offer a trip to Hampton Court Palace, which was the home of Henry VIII. So very exciting. Yeah. Let's see here. Oh, Florence, this is a great question about Oyster cards. Florence asks, do we need to get the Oyster card to ride the tube, or can we use our credit card with the chip?
You know, that's exactly, I already prepared my card to show you. So thanks, Florence. That was actually one of the things I was pointing out. So the great thing about London is if you have that sign, I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that?
Yes,
folks?
It almost looks like a Wi-Fi symbol. Yeah.
It looks like the Wi-Fi symbol, but what it is, it's the symbol for you being able to tap the card. You know, often when you go and pay somewhere, you can just tap your card and pay.
Mm-hmm.
If you have that symbol, 99% of the times that is accepted by all public transport in London, which means that you can just use your card and use the tube with your card, and also you can use it on the bus. So you don't have to get yourself an Oyster card. If your card doesn't work, then you can use an Oyster card. But however, and this is very important because people make that mistake, it's only one card per person. So if it's the two of you, you can't pass that card on to your friend and they can use it again. That won't work. It has to be, one card per person.
Great. All right. So, Dennis said that his wife was the one that typed the question about her husband wearing shorts. Understood. All right. Oh, this is Vicky. Thank you for asking this question. So, Vicky asks, "Is a COVID test to fly home?" Great news for our travelers. That is no longer required. So, the U.S. government and the Canadian government, neither of them are requiring our travelers to have a COVID test in order to fly home. Which has made things a lot easier for us, which is really lovely. One thing that I will say, just in general though, is that if these regulations do change, we'll be there to support you. So in the past, when that was required, we were helping our travelers to arrange these tests so that they could have that in order to fly home. So that's one of the great advantages of traveling with Go Ahead, is we are there to support you. So as of right now, that is not a requirement. You are not required to test in order to fly home. But if that were to change, we would be there to support you with that. All right, so let's take a look here. Oh, so Jennifer, this is a really good question. Jennifer says, we're arriving 2 days prior to the tour as well. And do we do our test before flying into London? And is the home test just the one that the government gave us, or do we have to buy a specific home test? So yeah, so if you're planning to use a home test, the ones that you can get from the government, those are acceptable. Yeah, those antigen tests, those are fine. What I would say is that we would ask that you do it within, if you're doing one of those home tests, we ask that you do that within 24 hours of joining the tour group. So you wouldn't do it before you fly to London, you do it before you meet up with the with the tour group. All right, let's see. All right, so okay, this is a good question. So Kat, when folks arrive at Heathrow, and if they have one of our drivers from Addison Lee and they're driving them to the hotel, the question is, should they tip that driver?
You can if you want. If the driver was nice, you can give him a couple of pounds. If he wasn't, then don't bother. That's
Fair
what
enough.
I would say. And can I just say also about the airport? So we started a little bit in London to also have some go-ahead people help us. So if you do see someone with a go-ahead sign, that doesn't
Yeah.
mean that you can't ask them for help, all right? Don't run away from them. Of course, if someone is there, you can always ask them if you can't find your driver. But generally speaking, the drivers always stand under the meeting point arrival sign. That's always a good thing. Just when you, and another thing, so once you're in the baggage hall, you exit the baggage hall and there will be channels. There will be a blue channel and a green channel and a red channel. And this is for declaration purposes, if you have anything to declare. So if you go through the channel, nothing to declare, you will then definitely arrive at the arrivals hall. That's how you know. Okay, so it's normally the green channel, nothing to declare. I hope you all have nothing to declare, of course. And then you come out and the driver generally stands under the meeting point.
Great. All right, so I have a question here from Sandra. She says, if we already paid for the Windsor Castle excursion and it's on Wednesday, is the payment transferred to the other excursion described? Yes, 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 that's how that would work. So if you signed up for that and it happens to fall on that day, we would just take it to Hampton Court Palace instead.
Correct.
All right, so Gail is asking, do I take the at-home COVID test before my flight to London? Yeah, so if you're just flying to London and then meeting the group, then yes, you would take that within 24 hours of the departure of your first flight. We had a question before that was asking if someone is arriving a couple of days ahead of time in London, would they take it before their flight then? So my answer to that is if you're just flying to London and meeting the group, take it before your flight. If you are arriving a couple of days ahead of time, then you would take it before you meet up with the tour group. All right. Oh, so William's asking, let's see. Oh, sorry, I lost it here. There was a question about clothing. Are there any kinds of like clothing that folks should avoid wearing? Anything that that would make them stick out?
Well, I tell you, and this is a real story. One of my colleagues just told me that in London, a lady was wearing high heels, and then she fell and she was blaming the tour director because the tour director didn't tell her that she shouldn't wear high heels. So, folks, I mean,
good, comfortable walking shoes.
Good, comfortable walking shoes is all I'm saying. And also, don't worry. Everything can be attended casually. You know, if you want to take a smart shirt for dinner, sometimes that's fine, but it's not an issue. You know, you can attend it casually. It's all good. You know, don't bring 50 pairs of shoes. It's not necessary. And also, folks, let's face it, we will all go shopping, won't we? So.
Kat, I had a question here about prescription medication. So someone says, do I need to declare prescription medicines? Not to my knowledge. My recommendation is to bring your medication in the original bottles with like that paper that they print out for you when you get the prescription filled, but I don't think you need to declare it, right?
I tell you what happens, okay? When you walk through the channel, nothing to declare, that means you don't have anything to declare. If one of the officers there stops us, which will probably not happen, and you have to open your luggage, they might ask you, what is this? And then you simply tell them, that's my medication. But again, and I cannot stress this enough, put all your medication in your hand luggage. Just on my last tour, I had a lady, she was diabetic. She lost her luggage and she freaked out because her medication was in her luggage. So please, please put it in your luggage. And often, I know sometimes it's an issue, maybe if it's in liquid form and you can't take it through security, but if it's medication and you show the security officer that you need it, then normally they will be allowing you to take it through.
Great. All right, so let's see. Okay, so Don asks, he says, if we purchase travel insurance through Go Ahead Tours, do we need any other insurance? From my perspective, no. I think that you're pretty well covered with that, because that does cover a lot of those situations that I described with travel delays, baggage delays, but then also on tour, it covers a lot of things. And the most important thing to me is it has a coverage for healthcare. So like if you do get sick or injured on tour, it has coverage for that. So from my perspective, I don't believe that you should need to buy any other additional supplemental insurance on top of the package that we sell.
And also, folks, may I just say, I just had it on my last tour. Someone did not take out our health insurance and they ended up in hospital. It does happen. Okay. It's peace of mind. Okay. So, I mean, you think about it, you don't have to take it well with us, anyone, but make sure you have health cover because you never know.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's a good idea just to have your bases covered when you're traveling. All right. Oh, interesting. So this question, are CBD gummies allowed? CBD medication. I don't know about how that would be, like what the deal is with that as far as flying. I think maybe I would say be cautious and just leave it at home.
This is quite weird that you mentioned that because I had someone on my last tour who was on medical and he had them with him. Now, I wouldn't take them with me because if the dogs are sniffing, I don't know if they can sniff it in the gummies. I'm not sure. But yeah, I don't think it's a good idea to bring them. I mean, it's up to you, but I wouldn't bring them because technically it's not legal here. Okay.
Yeah,
So just
yeah.
so you know.
Kat, I have had so much fun, answering these questions, getting ready to travel. This is actually, before I go on with that, I do want to answer this question. Gail asked, will we be able to see this presentation at a later date? I need to go. Yes, Gail, feel free to go. We have been recording this. We're going to upload it to our website tomorrow. So we're going to send you an email that will have a link to that page on our website. So you can access this recording at a later date. Kat, I wanted to ask you, this is, like you said, you had basically 2 years where you weren't traveling. What's it been like to be out and exploring the world with our travelers again?
Oh, it's been amazing. I mean, yes, it's been a bit crazy with all the delays and stuff, but it's just been so great because people are so happy to be out again. And at the end of the tour, when they're excited and they write you cards and they thank you, and you just want to hug them all and love them, and it's wonderful.
Yeah. I have to tell you that
Back.
from our perspective here in the office, it's just been honestly one of the most exciting times that I have had in my career because, it is a big time of transition, but we are just so excited to be out there and traveling and helping our clients make their travel dreams come true. So, Kat, I really want to thank you for being here with us. I really appreciate your expertise and for getting me excited about travel and helping our travelers to prepare as well. Before we say goodbye, do you have any final thoughts for our travelers?
Yes, I have a couple of suggestions I wrote down, if I may, Nielsen. So one is,
Yeah.
because I used to work for an airline before, and sometimes baggage gets lost because if you transfer from one airline to the next, they simply forget to put the baggage receipt number into the system. So my really strong suggestion is, once you put your bag in, first of all, make sure that your bag is tagged to your final destination so that it says, because often, you have 2 flights before getting to us. The bag is tagged to your final destination. And then when you do go on another flight, specifically when it's with another airline, but even with the same, go to a member of staff, even, when you're boarding or whenever, or if your flight is canceled and you're getting a new flight, and show them your baggage receipt and say, look, can you just check if my bag is in the system under my name? And that often avoids a lot of trouble. So in my experience, that's the one thing. The other thing is I have to quickly talk about COVID schmovid. Don't freak out about it, okay? Sometimes people get the sniffles because the weather changes all the time. So don't be in a massive panic about it, okay? And sometimes people arrive back home and they get it. Sometimes they have no symptoms and they have it. You never know, just don't panic. Enjoy your tour. If you start getting symptoms, then we can talk about it. But, even then you probably just have a cold. So don't worry too much about it. Another thing is that I would strongly suggest that you go to our website and read the Q&As because you have everything on there, and then you really know what it's all about. I cannot stretch enough what Nielsen said. Travel light, travel light, travel light. Simply for myself, because I have just done my back in lifting some of your cases, folks. And then also, forget about bringing hair dryers. trust me, I just had a fire alarm at 2 in the morning in a hotel, and we were 5 go-ahead groups in one hotel, and everybody was outside. Not so much fun. And then also another good tip I could give you. Now, what I do is I always get in touch with my groups via an app called WhatsApp, because WhatsApp works via the internet. And I would say 99% of our tour directors have WhatsApp. So if you are stuck somewhere and your phone doesn't work, you know, sometimes you don't have an international plan or it didn't kick in. If you download the app on the Wi-Fi wherever you are, then you can make Wi-Fi calls and you can send Wi-Fi messages. And this is a good way to get in touch with your tour director.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kat. I really do appreciate the time that you have taken to be with us and to help our travelers prepare. So thank you again. I really do appreciate you being here with us. And I also want to take a moment to thank you at home. I want to thank you for choosing to travel. I want to thank you for choosing to travel with Go Ahead. And I want to thank you for choosing the UK and Ireland. This is one of my favorite destinations to talk about and to travel to. And I just have to tell you that you are in for a real treat. We can't wait to see you on tour. And so until then, we will say safe travels and we will see you soon. Thank you.